You know that people have been moved by your songs. Yes, that is true. I'll never be the center of attention. Alan Jackson is a Grammy-winning country music star who is known for being very chill. However, he has kept his family life pretty quiet so that everyone can't see it. That being said, Jackson's daughter seems to have recently leaked this long-kept family secret, which made her father very sad. Some fans may have known all along, but for the rest of us, this is just a lot of news to take in. Hold on tight, because this video is going to show you what the Jackson family has been hiding all along. Childhood. It's easy to see where Alan Jackson's music and song ideas come from when you look at his early life. He was born in Newnan, Georgia in 1958 and grew up in the tool shed his grandfather owned. Alan came from a poor family, which had a big impact on his art and singing in some ways. It's always in his songs. Look at that simple and charming thing. The lyrics talk about basic things in life like love, hope, and the things we all go through. Jackson's dad was a mechanic, and his mom was a dietitian and a very good housewife. His father's small income kept the family going, and his mother made sure that the singer and his 4 older sisters had a strong faith as they grew up. There was also a lot of that in Jackson's music, especially when he was just starting out as a religious singer. Like a lot of great artists, Jackson started singing when he was a child, but that's not true at all. Jackson didn't start making songs at home. He didn't start singing until he was well into his teens, and when he did start, it wasn't right away country music. He liked church music. Then Jackson was ready to make waves in the music business with the help of his high school sweetheart, Denise Jackson, who later became his wife. He was on stage with his band, Dixie Steel, at the time. Jackson and Denise moved to Nashville in 1985 when he chose to make music his full-time job. At this point, fate stepped in and helped the singer get to the top. In her job as a flight attendant, Denise met country music star Glenn Campbell at an airport. She didn't wait to tell Campbell about Jackson's singing goals because she was his devoted wife and believed in his dreams. She told him that Jackson wanted to be known and would appreciate any help he could get. Glenn was interested in what Denise said, so he gave her his business card to help her. Not long after, Jackson made contact with the legendary singer's manager and music publishing business. And Arista Records made him their first country act when they signed him in 1989. At this important point in Alan's work, it's possible to start to wonder if his rise to fame has had an adverse effect on his marriage. It happens a lot. The young wife helps her famous husband get famous. The husband gets famous, cheats on her, and then leaves her, forgetting all the work she put in. Could this really be what his daughter told everyone? Become a star. Just a short time after Alan signed with Arista Records, his big hit record, Here in the Real World, came out. It had songs that were influenced by artists like Hank Williams and George Jones, who came before Jackson. About 5 hit songs were on that record as well. I'd Love You All Over Again was his first #1 hit ever. Some of the others were Blue-Blooded Woman and some bigger hits, like the famous Chasin' That Neon Rainbow. The record Here in the Real World stayed on the country charts for more than a year. It made Jackson famous around the same time that Randy Travis, Vince Gill, Garth Brooks, and Clint Black first became famous. Jackson put out another record called Don't Rock the Jukebox in 1991. The next year, he put out A Lot About Livin' and A Little About Love. The singer had 5 #1 hits across the country with just these 2 records. He also produced Who I Am in 1994 and Everything I Love the next year. It was on his 1992 album that the superstar gave us the famous hit single, Chattahoochee, along with Love's Got a Hold on You. On. People loved the American singer Hank Williams, and these 2 songs were written in his honor. They changed country music all over the world. The well-known singer put out more great records in the 2000s, such as When Somebody Loves You 2000, Drive 2002, and Good Time 2008. Over the years, Jackson has put out 22 studio albums, 14 compilation albums, 6 video albums, and 3 albums of his best hits. Over 7 million copies of his second best hits album were sold in the US, making it 7 times platinum. We already told you that he had some gospel and Christmas records. He also made an album to honor the Arista Nashville song. Alan was signed with the record company Arista from 1989 to 2011. There were 16 country music awards and 2 Grammys given to the star during the height of his career. He stayed true to himself. Without a question, Jackson's songs were great. The country star's fans loved him for more than just his songs. They loved him for who he was and what he stood for. Even though fame changed a lot of people in crazy ways, Jackson stayed true to himself. Jackson was not moved by the fact that many country singers started singing pop songs in the 2000s. He stuck with his honky-tonk style instead. As if to tell his fans, I'll always be here in country music, he even worked with George Strait on the huge hit song Murder on Music Row the 2, then sang the song at the CMA Awards, which made Jackson fans all over the world very happy. Jackson was a singer who stuck to the old ways. Besides recording with George Strait, he also did work with Randy Travis, Jones, and Jimmy Buffett. A lot of the music he made was his own take on other artists' work. One of these is his 1999 record Under the Influence, which was influenced by the music of Charlie Pride and Merle Haggard. Jackson's reaction to the events of September 11th is another example of how his personality shows through in his songs, and it may have also won over his fans. Jackson put out the album Where Were You When the World Stopped Turning, after the terrible event. In the song, the artist shared his feelings by talking about different ways he felt about what happened. Where Were You When the World Stopped got a lot of attention and won 4 awards, including Song of the Year at the CMAs and Best Country Song at the Grammys for Family Life and Secrets, Jackson Beneath the Cowboy Hat. We're getting close to the juice now, not near music. Jackson is a simple and easygoing family man who never lets work get in the way of his personal life. Aside from not starting to sing until he was very young, his mother was always there for him when he did start to pursue music. She was the young musician's mother figure and was known as Mama Ruth. She worked hard to help him develop his ability and was there for him when he wrote songs and made gospel music. Because she had such a big effect on his life and work, he made his mother his first gospel album as a Mother's Day gift. Since this was the case, he didn't let people buy the record until 2001. Jackson's second gospel record, Precious Memories I, came out a few years later. It had songs about his childhood, his grandfather's tool shed that they lived in, his parents, and how he was raised. The second album came out in 2013. A song he wrote was also played at the wake of his mother, where her heart has always been. Getting married but having problems. Jackson's life had some bad things happen to it. It was nothing compared to what the famous singer went through when he got married and started a family. He grew up in a tool shed and lost his mother when she was 86 years old. He and Denise had a hard time with their marriage. No matter how much Denise helped Jackson's work and how much the couple seemed to love each other, they have had a lot of problems in their marriage. The couple first met when they were both very young. Jack was 18 and Denise was 13. But that didn't stop them from starting a romance. After going out with Denise for 3 years, Jackson quit high school and married her. Talk about love between young people and that carefree high school romance. After becoming husband and wife, the young couple made the big move to Nashville. Keep in mind that Denise didn't have to change her birth name because it was also Jackson. Jackson got signed soon after this move and fame soon after that. Before they became famous, though, they had their first child, a girl named Maddie. This made their family bigger. The singer's first record, Here in the Real World, came out the same year that Maddie Denise Jackson was born. After about 3 years, they had their second daughter, Alexandra Jane Jackson, who they loved and called Jane Ollie. Third, there was Danny Grace Jackson, born in 1997, 4 years after the first two. By the end of that year, the couple had problems that they couldn't solve right away, which caused them to split up. Jackson and Denise's marriage didn't end there, though. A few months later, they went to see a marriage counselor and were able to get back together. Jackson did not talk about the specifics of his breakup, but he did write a song about it. The song was called Remember When, and Jackson and his wife were seen dancing in the video, which led to accusations of cheating. Did you get it right? Don't be so sure, though. We still don't know what Alan's daughter talked about, so the story isn't over yet. But let's get going, shall we? Years later, the secret that caused Alan and Denise to break up in 1997 was finally made public. Denise wrote a book in 2007 called It's All About Him Finding the Love of My Life. The author of the book wrote that her husband had cheated on her and betrayed her, which was one of the main reasons they broke up. She told everything. She talked about how Jackson had affairs with other women and said he wanted a divorce. She also talked about how she had to deal with the media and people calling her names and saying she was controlling and manipulating. Denise did say, though, that her faith was what got her out of the sticky position. She talked about a time when she was feeling very down after dropping her kids off at dance classes. She cried out to God while she was alone in the car and asked him to take charge of her life and marriage. Denise said she felt at peace all of a sudden, even though the problems didn't get fixed until about 2 months after the spiritual experience. The mom of 3 also talked about how as a teen she had lots of Cinderella-like standards. She thought her life would be like a princess's, with a Prince Charming who would sweep her off her feet and make her happy. She has learned that life isn't always a fairy tale and things won't always go as planned after going through a heartbreak that almost caused her marriage to end. However, the fact that she was married to a wealthy and well-known man didn't matter. In the end, she said that it is one's faith. The love of God was greater than all the world's gifts and all the gifts that men could give. Don't forget that she said the him in the title of her book was God, not her husband. The point of the book was to share her story and give hope to couples or people who want to get married but are having problems in their relationships. Just as the couple was enjoying the fact that their marriage had been saved, they faced an even bigger problem. Cancer was found in Denise in 2010, which caused her and Alan to go through more big waves. This was even more of a surprise than the divorce. Denise said it was the worst news of her life. Denise got a call telling her she had colon cancer while she and her husband were on vacation to celebrate their wedding anniversary. The singer's wife had first gone to the hospital to say she was bleeding in a strange way. She was asked to do some tests, but she didn't think they would be so important. Denise and Jackson both had to go back home to get help from experts, so the vacation was cut short. They were lucky that they were able to get through the hard time because Denise completely beat cancer with the help of chemotherapy and radiation treatments. She said that the treatment center was too much for her, but that her husband Jackson was there with her, giving her all of his love and support, and that he took care of her during her long and tiring treatment. On this subject, Jackson said that it was a hard time, and he really understood what it means to say for better or worse in your wedding vows during that time. He said that at that point, keeping that wedding promise felt like the most important thing in his life, and he worked hard to do just that. At this point, even his daughters said that their dad made sure he was strong for both himself and their mom. Jackson also said that the illness had changed the way they saw the world and that they now know what is important and what is not. He said that what happened made them think about their lives again. Going through with their plan to simplify their lives and spend more time together, the couple sold many of their homes. Jackson was, of course, moved by this event again to write a song for Denise called When I Saw You Leaving. On his 2013 record 30 Miles West, the song was one of the tracks. There was an interview where Allen said the song was for both him and his wife. He also said he thought the song could help people who were going through the same things. Jackson has talked a few times about his wife. When he got the 2022 CMA Willie Sun Lifetime Achievement Award, he took the time to honor his wife and give the award to her. The singer talked about how his wife has been there for him even when he was hard to love. They've been married for 45 years, making them one of the longest-lasting celebrity couples living. Not only Denise was sick, but so was everyone else. Jackson also said in 2021 that he had been identified with ultiamte, a genetic disease of the nervous system that makes muscles weak. The sickness doesn't seem to be getting better, and there isn't a cure for it. In interviews, the musician said that the disease had made him lose his balance, which made him trip and fall even on stage. Not only Jackson, but also his father's older sister and his paternal grandma had this disease, which proved that it was a genetic problem. Luckily, the disease is not thought to be fatal. You can deal with it by getting supportive physical treatment to help you move around. This medicine could put off any disabilities or deformities for a while. The sickness also doesn't really affect the muscles that control breathing, which is good. Jackson didn't talk about his problems very often, and the fact that he fought this disease for almost 10 years before he finally decided to share is a good example of this. In fact, he might not have talked about it at all if he wasn't stumbling around so much while playing. Jackson said he wanted everyone to know why he tripped on stage. That's why he talked about his fight with the sickness that gets worse over time. He does not want his fans to be confused about what is going on. Denise has been there for her husband and helped him a lot, just like he was there for her when she had cancer. Jackson has also tried to stay positive since he was caught talking about the sickness. He said it wasn't dangerous and wouldn't kill him. Jackson and George Jones are dating. A great part of Alan Jackson's story that might not have been told as much as his friendship with his hero, George Jones. We all have someone we look up to, and some of us get ideas from popular people or someone who guides us. George Jones was Jackson's hero, and he was lucky enough to meet him while he was still living. Even though they were different ages, the two guys became close and became friends. Jackson and Jones were from very different times in terms of age. Jackson was busy trying to make a name for himself in the music business, but Oj had already put out more than 50 albums, and 10 of his songs were #1 hits all over the country. Around 1989, Jackson seemed to be getting his bearings. George was going through something that could be called a descent from the peak of his own career by the time the up-and-coming artist went public. No matter what happened, George was still Jackson's biggest influence. He was always there to support and guide him on his way to fame. Jones and Jackson worked together on some big projects, even though they seemed to be from different eras when they were friends. A Good Year for the Roses was one of the most well-known of these. Jones first released the song in 1970. After meeting Jackson and becoming friends with him, he made a new version with Jackson and put it out in 1994. Jones's career took a dip, but it came back strong, and this time he was asked to perform a shorter version of his song choices at the Country Music Awards. Because he wouldn't be able to sing the whole song, the musician said no. He also said he wouldn't go to the show at all. A very interesting thing did happen, though, while he was watching the show at home. Jackson got on stage and sang a few words from one of his songs. He didn't say anything before he sang the chorus of Jones's Choices 2 when he was done. The old singer wasn't the only one who was shocked by what he saw on TV. He was also so moved and grateful that his younger friend did that for him that he called him to thank him and tell him how proud he was of him. Jones and his song became even more well-known in the end. Choices went back up the charts a few months after that event and went on to win the Grammy for Best Male Country Vocal Performance. It was great that both singers' careers were going so well at that time. Even though they were very different in age, the events and actions that led to that time show how close the two singers had become. The world of country music lost a great on April 26, 2013. George Jones died. He was 81 years old. Jackson was going through a very hard time. He later went on social media to talk about how much he hurt over the death of his friend. He put up an old picture of himself and Jones on Facebook with the words, "Well, heaven better get ready for some great country music." But George was known for being crazy and wild sometimes. I've been friends with him for 25 years. He was now a really good guy. He wrote, "Of course, he'll always be the best singer and performer of real country music. It's going to end." After that, Jackson tried not to cry as he sang the Possum's 1980 hit song, "He Stopped Loving Her Today," at the funeral of a friend. There were tears from many fans at the event at the Grand Ole Pry, as the singer gave the song his all. The old singer also had a soft spot for the Grand Ole Pry, because he had played there a lot while he was still living. At the time, fans and people all over the world were sad. A lot of well-known singers sang at the event as well. A lot of other acts, like Kid Rock, Travis Tritt, and Vince Gill, were also there. He always talked about his old friend and how close they were when he was asked. Investigators also learned that he talked about how his friends had helped his music career even after they died. They said that "He Stopped Loving Her Today" was one of his most important songs. Jackson still talks about and shares pictures of his friend George on social media every day, even though George died years ago. This sounds like a great relationship, but the Jackson daughter may have gotten angry because she knew something else about her dad and George. Was the friendship more than what Alan Jackson made us think it was? The story of Alan Jackson's daughter. It's time to finally tell the truth. We may have told you that Jackson has 3 girls. These 3 people are called Maddie, Jane, and Danny. Maddie is the oldest. She has a show where she talks about hope and happiness and tries to motivate people who listen. She wrote a book called Lemons on Friday, Trusting God Through My Greatest Heartbreak, just like her mother did. Her husband died of a serious brain injury just a few weeks before their first wedding anniversary. She wrote the sad book to remember him. It was a sad event that led to Lemons on Friday, but it made Maddie's childhood dream come true by giving her parents. A more recent copy has a foreword that Jackson and Denise wrote with love. After being widowed for 5 years, Maddie was lucky enough to get married again. To go over this one more time, she and her new husband moved to Nashville to start a family. When Maddie wants to say something, she doesn't hold back. She's talked about her dad. One of these times was right after her wedding. Social media users saw a picture of her wedding and wrote about how Jackson had always been there for her. They thanked him for being so loving. She showed her dad an old picture of the two of them when they were kids on another Father's Day. "To the man who gives everything so his girls can have everything, we love you so much," she wrote in the description. But now comes the big surprise. She and her new husband Connor had a boy named Wesley Jackson Smith as their first child. On June 2nd, 2024, he was born. That is what you heard. In her Instagram post, Maddie says that the baby was named after both of her grandfathers, Jackson, Connor's dad, and Wesley, Maddie's dad. It's not just that Maddie named her son after the famous singer, whose dad she is. What happened before and after the move made it even more moving. She had already said that it was possible to be sad and happy at the same time. This is what she said to describe how she felt after her first husband died and she had a son. She was sad, but she still got to name her child after her dad. His daughter really loves him because of this. It also raises the value of the show. It's shocking to learn this because a lot of popular people harm their families after they become famous. But this is a humble figure who has become a hero to both the world and his girls. She also said in her post that the baby would have a great life if he was like Jackson, his namesake. His second daughter, Jane, also has a lot to say about her dad. She often posts sweet words to her dad on social media. She says she's thankful that her dad wants to teach her and help her grow up to be a strong woman. In case you didn't know, Jane also named her boy after her dad. In 2022, Jackson wrote on social media, "Denise and I are celebrating our 43rd wedding anniversary with our new grandson, Jackson Alvy Bradshaw, Sarah Ali, and Jane Ali, who are sisters. Can't decide who talks more about how nice their dad is. They both love him, which we love. Fans are always happy to see a famous family getting along, even though fame and money can be hard on families. These two things seem to keep many families apart rather than bring them together." Donnie, Jackson's last child, is also there. In the early 2000s, she was in Alan's music video for Drive, which also had her older sisters and their dad, Jackson. Donnie's the youngest. She might also talk more about her dad as time goes on. So, what do you think about what Alan Jackson's kids said about their dad? What do you think that changes about how people around the world see the popular singer now? Enter your answer in the box below. Don't forget to follow the station and like the movie. Thanks for seeing. Please click on the next movie that comes up if you like this one.